Welcome back to the Choco Zone podcast. This time, I bring you in the southern hemisphere of the world. We live in Las Vegas and our friend Jean-Marie Bon. We live in the nation of the bean to bar. We fly to the east, on the Atlantic Ocean, and we go ahead to the Africa, India Ocean, Australia. And we finally arrive in the Pacific Ocean till the Salomon Islands, a beautiful place full of nature and of good cocoa trees. Here we will see a good friend of mine, and we will see also a part of the world of the cocoa. So, enjoy.
We are happy to be in contact with the other half of the world. Also, if it is a long time that he lives in Brisbane, in Australia, he is coming from Salomon Islands, and here we are with Brian Atkin. Hello, Brian. How are you?
Hello, Umberto. Hello, Giuseppe. I'm very well, thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. And you are working with the cocoa business and also chocolate makers, guys. But what was about you before that you start with cocoa? And where are you? Where are you now? Where are you coming from? A little history about you, please.
Yeah, sure.
Tell us.
So I was born in the Salomon Islands. My dad is a Solomon Islander, and my mother comes from New Zealand. But I've lived in Australia most of my life. But I've been travelling back to the Solomons, very regularly. And it was about 6 years ago now. I was in the Solomons, and I was just finishing up another project. I'd volunteer for different projects in the Solomons just to try and support the communities and the people there. This was a health project, but when I'd finished that, my cousin came to me in the capital in Honiara, and he said, Brian, you live in Australia, you have everything, you have money and you have a job, but your cousins here in the Solomons, we have nothing, and we want you to help us. And so I said, absolutely, we're the same blood.
Yes.
I'm very privileged and very lucky. I was just born, just over there, and so I said, well, let's think about some options. What can I do that's possible? Because I have a family in Australia as well. I have to think about my children, but also, I want to help you in the Solomons. So we thought about it, and the thing that really stuck out to me was cocoa, or as they say, cocoa, and it's because it grows so well there, grows everywhere, just because of the volcanic soil and the rainfall, the fertility, because of all the fringing reefs around the islands that have gone up and down over the thousands of years, so limestone everywhere.
You're talking about the quality of life, I guess.
The quality, and of the land is just this amazingly fertile, beautiful, the land there. And but the problem they faced was that the cocoa was part of a global commodity, supply chain, supplying the big chocolate makers, the big confectionery makers.
Yeah.
And they got a very, very small amount, of the end product. Like
Brian,
it was very
who brought the cocoa trees, the cocoa seams in Salomon Island? Do you know the history about the cocoa in Salomon? Yeah.
So the written history is that the missionaries in the 19th century brought the first cocoa. So I think Germans and Dutch and the European missionaries, as they came, they brought different crops, and cocoa was introduced. But the unwritten history and the stories that are told are that the first European to discover the Solomon Islands he was a Spanish explorer called Alvaro Mendana, and he found he discovered the Solomons in the 16th century, and so the stories are that he brought the first cocoa and he planted in very remotest of the provinces in the Tuamotu province, which is very far away.
Yeah.
And then cocoa spread from there. And I've even heard stories that there are very old trees over there in that remote province where they say it's direct from that time.
Which were the original genetic? I mean, was a kind of a forastero, trinitario, you know that?
Yeah, there's I've seen a lot of testing. So there's one Australian cocoa genetics project that I've been involved in over the last couple of years, and they had one of the local agriculture guys travelled around Makira selecting interesting specimens, seeds and leaves from the cocoa trees, and they identified, the majority of it is amelinado. So this is a type of forastero, but they identify there's Criollo, a lot of the other Amazon species. They even identified some of the Paranari and even the very the one that
so there are a mix of different origins.
A big mix, very big mix. 100 years or so, just different people brought in more and more, and it just lots of different farms try different types, and so just the diversity is incredible.
Yeah. And how was the organization, the dealers or the buyers of cocoa before of your arrival in Salomon Island? How it was planned? How was the market?
Yep. So the supply chain there works. Most of the cocoa in the Solomons is all smallholder farmers. So average of about 1 hectare per farmer. That's a very standard sized farm. What will typically happen is that they will just sell their wet beans to local fermentaries in the area, who then dry it using a type of kiln or a smoke dryer, and then those smoke dried beans are then sent into the capital so you've got multiple middlemen along the way. Eventually they get into the capital where they're sold to exporters, who then export into the Asian grinding markets mainly, which then supplies the global confectionery chains. And so that's the price the farmers get is very, very small, and for many of them it's not even worth doing. So a lot of the time they don't bother. The cocoa can just sit there and rot on the tree. That happens a lot of the time.
And this is happening everywhere in any farm, I guess. They just see they can get some money from their beans, they are taking care of, and sometimes it happens that they probably take care a lot more, or sometimes it's just something, as you said, boring, something that's it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Is it changing? Is there any more consciousness about the importance that they have in the whole business, or it's going to be like that forever?
Look, there's been a lot of efforts to try and the solution is to try and help the farmers access better markets. So the artisan markets, the bean to bar markets. These are the markets that will give the farmers a better price, and so there's been a lot of lot of work, and that's where I've been trying to help out as well by, because I'm a private, and I bring my own money. I'm not a donor. I'm not the government.
Sure.
I don't have the same box that I have to fit in, or rules. Like I've been able to come in and look at what the problems are and just try and resolve what I can myself.
Yeah.
And so that my journey over the last 5 years has very much been, started right from the source with my cousin, growing and fermenting and drying. We built our own prototype sun drying facilities, with a bit of a roof to try and keep the rain off it. It didn't work, but we learned from that, and then we kept going, and it took us 18 months before we eventually had produced beans that I thought were quality enough to try and import into Australia. And so along the way it's just been find the problems, let's try and resolve them, but with the objective in mind of trying to get the farmers a better price.
And you create a competition against the old buyers of the beans that was there before of you, or not? So they started to pay more also to other farmers the cocoa, or not?
Yeah, there has been a improvement in the price for sun-dry beans. So I have helped with, and I'm quite in the market size. I'm relatively small in the whole market size in the Solomons, but in the sun-dry market, so this is the good quality beans, I've certainly been able to help lift the price. And it's that competition, because once you have introduced more competition, and there is limited demand of the high quality sun-dried beans, we have seen an increase in the price. It's not been consistent because I also have to I have cycles where I can buy and not buy depending on market conditions. But
there is also your market. You have to see also that.
Yeah, that's right. I don't have endless supply of money. It's my own. I have to really think and make sure I can try and make it sustainable.
Yeah, and are you selling also out of Australia, or only in Australia, the Salomon Island beans?
I do have I have supplied into the New Zealand markets and also the European markets. This year we haven't done any. We've had the obvious COVID issues, but we're just in the process of getting our next shipment into the European market, hopefully in the next few months. So that's Australia is our biggest market, but we do have quite a good niche following in Europe as well.
I remember when we last met during the chocolate class, you had a very peculiar boxes and bags. Do you remember? We talked about the shipment to Europe and these blue bags. They were very peculiar to me, very new to me. Can you explain?
Oh, yeah. You mean the grain crate?
Yeah.
When
you ship and get into countries that are so far from Salomon Islands.
Yeah. So one of the problems there are a few problems that I came across when we were trying to not only just ship beans overseas to faraway markets, but also to ship beans from a remote island. We have a farm that's near the beach and has to get from the beach and the beans have to get to the main port, and they go on a ship, and and when they're carrying the beans by hand, they have big bags. It might be 80-kilo bags of beans, and it's raining. Maintaining quality was very challenging, and so we quite early on entered into a partnership with GrainPro. So they're more well known in the coffee industry for maintaining quality the coffee beans in the coffee industry, but they're really starting to become, you know, quite important in the cocoa industry as well. So they, you know, when we keep our beans in those grain pro bags, they're hermetic bags, they protect the beans from, you know, from any moisture egress, from rain, from salt water. You know, the other big thing is they protect them from cocoa moths, because there's no oxygen within the bags so it disrupts the life cycle. You know, and they were just critical, and so we had issues with all of those things in the early days until we discovered those, and now we maintain a supply that basically from farm all the way to end destination, wherever that chocolate maker might be, the beans stay in those Grain Pro bags. They might be rebagged, especially for export.
I remember it, yeah.
But they stay in those bags, and it, you know, it was like that. That was what was hard about that. Also, was that you couldn't get Grain Pro bags in the Solomon Islands. So at first, I was importing them, and then that distracted me from my main business of, you know, trying to work on cocoa. So I managed to arrange another hardware distributor in Solomon Islands to become the importer and distributor. So now that's their business. So now they're the ones that are the importers, and I have a source of Grain Pro bags, and the Solomon Island farmers and exporters have a source of these Grain Pro bags from this particular company. So they're the sorts of things that we've had to do sort of along the way. Every time we hit a problem, how can we get around it?
And what is the characteristics of the Salomon Island? Also, if you have said that you have different origins, and so you can keep this different origin from different family farmers' field, or you put everything in the same bag and then it is the brand Salomon Island origin. So how do you divide, and what is the characteristics?
So we keep it, we maintain the producer origin, so typically the farmer origin. So we have farmers in Makira that produce, ferment and dry the beans, and that's the bean, that's the origin that we supply or we sell. In Makira and Tuamotu and the different islands across the Solomons, we maintain that. And initially I tried to, and it's quite tricky. It's a very difficult problem.
I could imagine, yes.
Because there's so many farmers. How can we maintain an inventory list of so many farmers? So it is a real big challenge. And there are times where I've and I haven't done it for a little while, but where I've created my own blend. So based on, this particular farmer's beans have a quite chocolatey. These ones have more of a honey type malt flavor. Let's put that together, and then let's introduce a little bit of red fruits and from this one over here.
Cool. What is the feedback of the chocolate makers about your cocoa beans? How they change the flavor, or they maintain the change? They maintain the flavor. They use more conching it or not? This is
So I have excellent feedback, and I find chocolate makers are very, very skilled and very sophisticated with what they're doing. They're very, very fine-tuned palate. So they're looking for different types of beans with different flavor characteristics. Then they will accentuate or enhance that with their conching and their roasting. So they'll identify that some of our beans might have more of a bit of an apricot type flavor, and then they're going to roast it with the profile that will help bring that apricot to life. And I think that's amazing. I find that really quite incredible.
Yeah, do you remember when we conch into your chocolate during the class, that we use the Cacao, and we try to develop different flavors and not just acidity. The chocolate makers that buy your beans compare to the other origins, so other countries, what they're looking for. It's just a matter of having the widest variety of origins, or there is a specific feature or flavor that the Solomon Island beans are more, I don't know, appreciated for. Which is the feedback about specific flavors?
Yeah, I've probably had a bit of all of that. You know, it just depends on the chocolate maker and what their marketing plan is, and what whether they have a range of origins and they want, they're looking for a specific flavor that rounds out their range of chocolate bars. So I've had chocolate makers wanting that, wanting a specific type of flavor for their chocolate bars. Other ones who, I guess more regional based, they're looking for, like a Pacific or a remote or exotic type origin to add in.
The origin.
Yeah. And we have all of that, because the amazing thing about cocoa is just the diversity of the flavor you can get. So we have these different farms that might be not far from each other, but they're producing cocoa that has quite different flavors. It's quite incredible.
Yeah.
And then it's maintaining that, with seasonal variation, which becomes, I guess, one of those next challenges.
So we can say that you help the farmers in Salomon Islands, and that also the little chocolate crafters help you and the farmers. So that the business that you make with cocoa is only destined to the chocolate makers, the bean to bar chocolate makers, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So, and they're the ones that are paying the higher prices for their beans, that directly translate to better prices for the farmers. So, there's an absolute direct correlation between the bean to bar market and the prices that they're paying back to the farmers getting a better price, a better price than what they would get, selling into the commodity market. And there's it's more, it's more for consumers. It's more than just that as well, because the consumers, when they get this chocolate made from the bean to bar market, that flavor diversity that they can get without having to, getting an apricot flavored chocolate with just 2 ingredients.
Sure.
It's just the sugar and the cocoa. They're not having to add any other additives into it. And it's real that it's that pure. It's come from the farm. Hasn't gone through lots of processing to turn it into something that it's not. It's not all blended together. And many times the bean to bar maker wants to respect and tell the story of the farmer that produced it as well. That's another really, that's just a wonderful thing about the industry.
The direct relationship between the farmers and the chocolate maker is improving. It's getting better and better, because in my last visit in Peru, I was quite pleased to listen to the chocolate makers when they got the awards, or when they're talking about their own process and job. They always included the farmers. They always gave they were so thankful to the farmers. There was some sort of inclusion in the process of the farmers. Is this the same also in Solomon Islands? Because I don't think it's everywhere like that.
Yeah, I think it's a new thing, and but certainly the bean to bar industry is really helping to push that along. I think another unique characteristic about the bean to bar movement is just in the majority of cases the raw product of the beans themselves almost always come from a third world country, but the actual production, generally, and not always, there's a lot of chocolate made in these countries as well, but most of the markets where they're actually made are in a lot of these much more developed countries. And so, that's the thing, that because I sort of sit in the middle, of working with both ends, just the difference between, a cocoa farmer in a developing country like the Salomon Islands versus chocolate maker in Sydney or Melbourne, which are amongst the best food destinations around. Just they're like the most opposite people. But this bean to bar movement, it brings them together, so that there's this mutual respect.
And about the bean to bar chocolate makers, when do you find Jessica, and what do you do with Jessica Pedimont?
So Jessica and I, we were fortunate to have a mutual friend, so Nat Bletter from Hawaii, and so I met Nat in Solomon's a number of times, and he just thought, Jessica's in Australia, you're in Australia, you're both great people, you should just meet and see what happens. So he did an introduction, and over the course of a year or so of us talking, we identified that we had these sort of shared ideals and shared goals of what we wanted to see, but we came at it from very different perspectives. So Jessica really is just come out of the whole artisan movement. She lives and breathes it, and grew up in that sort of environment, and I just learned it all myself. And so I knew how to make chocolate, and I just had that going, and I wanted to, I thought, how can I make what I'm doing bigger?
Mm-hmm.
And I had these dreams of, how can I create my own, sell my own chocolate. I think everyone that's involved in the cocoa industry has this dream.
Yeah,
because, chocolate is the
it is like a dream for everybody. Yeah.
Everyone that touches a cocoa bean has this dream, of making the beautiful chocolate at the end. But for me to try and do that myself was an impossible dream. And so with Jessica, I could see, because we had the shared views and shared goals, and we were quite different. I thought we both thought, well, this is how together we can really supercharge this and make it into something that's bigger than both of us. And so that was a few years ago, and it took us, as you do with these new businesses, it takes a while to make progress, and so it's taken a long time. And of course, we opened in January, and then in March we had COVID, and and it has, like for everybody, but for a new business, it's been extremely difficult. So, we're just very fortunate. A number of times I've had to lean on, my friends and networks just to keep us going. Just to keep us afloat. And things are still tough.
Sure.
But
it's getting better now, or still unsure?
Still, things are still hard. We're coming into Christmas now, so we're really optimistic about how things will go over the next few months. And then next year, well, it's not 2020 anymore, so who knows?
We have to forget about it.
Yeah, let's write this year off. Yeah.
So you are not a chocolate maker anymore. I mean, a full-time chocolate maker anymore. Is there any other farmers that is thinking about producing their own chocolate? Because in some countries in the world, there is some chocolate farmers that are starting making their own chocolate.
Yep. There is a little bit being made in the Solomons now, with a lot of support from donor countries. Mm-hmm. One of the big problems in the Solomons, though, is it's one of the most expensive electricity in the world. Mm-hmm. Like I think like top 5 in the world cost of electricity. Which makes it quite difficult. So business conditions are quite hard there for producing chocolate, but they are trying. There is some being produced there.
Okay. I suppose they are willing to sell in Australia basically, or maybe New Zealand. They don't have a very future plan such a worldwide.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think they're mainly initially targeting the tourist market over there.
Yeah.
But of course, that there's not much tourism at the moment, so that's
There is no tourism at all anyway. Right
the
now.
borders are closed. Yep,
Yeah.
that's right. So yeah, it's quite difficult. There's markets for cocoa powder and cocoa butter, of course, export markets for those things, but they require pretty large. The machinery required is quite quite a bit bigger. So I think they're a bit struggling to try and find that sort of thing.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. It has been a big pleasure to talk with you, and we hope to have at the time to show to the people that it is important to buy the chocolate from chocolate crafters, to try to see the difference. For this is sure, and then to know that with the chocolate crafters they can also give a little more big help to the farmers that normally they cannot decide anything for themselves. They are under the big feet of the majors, that they decide the price, they decide also the future of these families. So this is important, and I think that with your with this episode, the people could start to understand what is also behind the chocolate market. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Umberto. Thank you, Giuseppe. It's a pleasure to talk to you again, and hopefully we'll see each other again next year, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
And give such a big hug.
Yeah.
Okay.
We must do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Fuck you, COVID.
Yeah,
See you soon,
absolutely.
my friend.
All right,
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Bye.